Hey, welcome to another edition of the Backstage Experience. I'm Dave Morales from BackstageWell.com.
And I'm John Stemval from BackstageWell.com.
We're pretty excited to actually bring you video of this particular episode. We're talking about the brand new movie out called Brian Banks. We're going to get into that, but first we got to give a shout out to Summit Dental Center, who presents the Backstage Experience. You can call Summit Dental Center at 713-425-0450 to make an appointment, or go to summitdentalcenter.com. If you have a chance, I encourage you to listen to the podcast. It's audio with Dr. K, we call him.
Yeah.
Isa Kawaja is the guy that the co-owner of Summit Dental Center here in Houston, Texas. Great podcast, and there are some tips you need to listen to throughout the entire episode. Because people, one of the things that was most interesting about talking with him was like, what do you do if you can't? Because I said, do you
can't
brush after every meal? But if you can't,
and I never knew like just rinsing your mouth out with water.
well, now you're giving away the
and that's a little spoiler, but it's
well,
a great
that is the
episode.
spoiler. It's not a little one.
Well,
That
he has
is
a lot of tips, so
yeah. But see, the whole idea for me is I was teasing it for people to go and check out. And then you're like, it's like let's talk about the Titanic. Oh, the ship sinks. But anyway, I'm just playing
thanks
with
for
you.
ruining the movie.
Whatever. Anyway, we're talking about a great film today called Brian Banks, and this movie is extremely powerful. It's based, for those that don't know, it's funny because, we walk around the newsroom and some of the reporters and some of the people that work at the station have said, Brian Banks, is that the story about the guy that was the NFL hopeful that was wrongly accused of rape? And because it was a huge news story a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely it was. And it's really sad because part of the premise of it is he was accused of rape when he was in college. He was at USC, right? He was USC
he was.
hopeful.
Well, he had actually at Long Beach, when this college is in Long Beach. He was a USC hopeful, a big NFL prospect.
Yeah, and then he gets accused of rape, something he didn't do. He actually got convicted of the crime and spent 6 years in prison and then another 5 years on parole. And the story is about his experience trying to get his charges dropped.
Yeah, and what he went through to actually get his name cleared. He worked with the California Innocence Project. We have interviews with the entire cast, and we're going to get through that here in just a couple of minutes so you can see some of the video that we talked to. Greg Kinnear's in the movie. Aldous Hodge, who actually plays Brian in the movie. And we were lucky enough to talk with, do you like my notes?
And even Morgan Freeman's in the movie.
Morgan Freeman's in the movie.
Yeah.
Do you like my notes? John says that I write like Disney writing.
He does, right? You write like Mickey Mouse. Like if Mickey Mouse wrote, you have the Mickey Mouse font.
I guess I do with my dots on the eyes and things like that. Anyway, Aldous Hodge, actor, plays Brian in the movie. Greg Kinnear plays Justin Brooks, who is the attorney that worked with still runs the California Innocence Project. Basically, people go and present their cases to him if they feel like they've been wrongly convicted and try to get their name cleared. So Brian basically went through all that.
Yeah, and so far they've got, I think, 28 people have had been cleared of their convictions.
We didn't get an interview with Justin, but he was at the interviews the day that we were doing press with the cast. And I went up to Justin, I was talking to him, and I said, you know what we need? I go, we need the Texas Innocence Project. And he says, we have one. And I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
See, I didn't know that. I said, and maybe we should talk about that more, because we know the California Innocence Project, and then you might even be familiar with the New York Innocence Project, which I think the guy's name is Barry something other. He was one of the OJ lawyers.
Oh, okay.
And if I can grab my phone, I can Google it, I guess. But I'm going to do it. Because why not? And we should be giving out accurate information.
And the reason this is really important is because a lot of time these people who can't afford good lawyers, they're approached by the DA, and then often they're given a plea deal. And it's either sign the plea deal for, say, 5 years, or if you decide not to, they're going to go after you for 40 years. And so people that aren't even guilty, sometimes out of fear of not being able to hire a good lawyer and getting 40 years, go ahead and sign the plea deal. And that's why a lot of these DAs have 95% conviction rates.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barry Scheck was the guy. Barry Scheck. I think I almost said Barry Switzer, who I think is an NFL coach.
Yeah.
But it's Barry Scheck. And if you watched the OJ trial years ago or just have read about it, he was the guy that through the DNA, he's a huge DNA expert. So he started the New York Innocence Project. Justin Brooks, who was played by Greg Kinnear in the film, runs the California Innocence Project. So these organizations do amazing work. And when you research, and I did actually research more about what they do because of the Brian Banks story, it's just fascinating. So anyway, Brian's story, and we're not going to give away any spoilers here. We introduce a very special guest to the show, though. Hobby and Ralph.
Come on.
Come you
on
can
in.
say hi to everybody. We're talking about Brian Banks. These guys.
Hi, guys.
This team is
How you doing?
is awesome.
So excited to be here. Oh my God, the Dave Morales and the John. The John.
Hey, are you guys going to go see Brian Banks?
Yeah, if I can. When?
No, yeah, when is the question?
It opens this weekend.
It opens this weekend.
Then yes.
When are we going?
Oh, when are we going?
Yeah, when are we
well,
going?
we've already done a premiere, but we can take you.
Okay. I like
Shout out to the Edwards Marquee in Houston. Demir.
We're each plus twos.
Yeah, we can do that. It's a great movie.
I'm down.
And another
I haven't
one,
done movies in a while, so.
another one that we're going to talk about. Can I plug a movie coming up in a couple of weeks?
Let's do it.
Since we're talking to everybody here, Peanut Butter Falcon is awesome.
What is Peanut Butter Falcon?
Good question, Hobby. Here's $10. She's reading the script.
I'm just going to use one of those deep voices like, plug.
Dude,
Plug.
we need that.
Yes.
We need that. He's giving us ideas. Peanut Butter Falcon is about a kid with Down syndrome that escapes his home, and Shia LaBeouf is in it. Dakota Johnson. We have those interviews coming up in a future episode.
Cool.
But they kind of like it's like a Mark Twain type story.
Feel good story.
Feel good.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm down. Let me know when you guys are going to go see it. I'll go with y'all.
I love
Awesome.
this. Special
Let's do
guest,
it.
ladies and gentlemen.
I'll see you guys later.
Hobby.
Take care.
Enjoy the
Hobby.
green room. We don't really have one. It's this vending machine down the hall. So anyway, Brian Banks, he had a relationship with a girl, and she tried to make us some stories. And it wasn't necessarily for NFL money because he wasn't in the NFL yet.
She went to school.
She
To the school.
right, and I really don't want to give away too much of the movie because the movie does tell the story, but we've kind of set this up. And one of the interesting things opportunities that we get when we do talk with the actors, and in this case, we talked with the individual that's involved in the movie, Brian himself. We get to ask them questions about what it was like for him to see this play out on the screen. The day that I interviewed him, and you're about to see the video here in a second, the night before they had a premiere in Long Beach, miles from where all this happened. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what was it like to relive this? How painful was it? Was it painful to relive this?
And this is our interview with Brian Banks.
Gentlemen, I'll start by saying it's an honor to sit across from you today. What a powerful, brave movie that everybody needs to see.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first time you two met. As I'm watching this, I'm like, I want to know about that first meeting.
Yeah. Do you want me to take over?
Go, babe.
First time I met Tom, it was after I had found out that he was, taking over as the director of this film, and I was overly excited to know it was him. Growing up watching all of his films, and then he offered to pick me up and take me to get some food, and so we could have our first discussion. And he picked me up in this really beat down. What was it? It was a Chevy Tahoe
Had
from
seen better days.
Yeah, man, with windows on different levels and the door, the Jimmy the door open.
Yeah.
And I just knew from that moment this dude was real, that he was still connected to the earth and he wasn't, high in the sky. And so I think that was, honestly, as weird as it sounds, it was a great first impression. And then once we started talking, he was in fact a very humble, real, honest, straightforward, wise person, and a lot that he talked about resembled what me and Mr. Johnson would talk about when I was incarcerated. So it just made sense, and knowing his journey and what he'd been through too.
Tell me about what drew you to this story, to put this on the big screen.
Well, I fell in love with this guy. First it's on paper, and you see some clips, but you got to meet the guy. And when I met the guy, I knew. As much as he talked about the darkness and how dark his story was, there's still this light pouring out of him. This guy's been crushed into a diamond. And I want that to shine. I want his story to shine so that his life can be used to free others.
It does, my friend. It really does. Was it difficult, though, at times to relive this? I mean, you had the premiere last night to a standing ovation, which kudos to you both, near where all this happened, near Long Beach. So that must have been redeeming. We could talk about that in a minute. But as you're seeing this play out on the screen, as you're working on the film, was it tough to relive some of this?
Yeah. I mean, regardless of any monetary gains or tangible items received or any successful things that you accomplish, none of it will lighten or make light of losing 10 years of your life. to a wrongful conviction, spending time in prison, losing your fundamental stages of adulthood, those years that you just can't get back, and then being labeled a sex offender and a rapist, just all of those things. I don't think that you could say that, now that there's a movie here or this is that it takes away, it makes light of it. But I am just more so just thankful that I could be in this position now to not only tell my story, but share the stories of so many other people in similar situations.
What do you say to those people, both of you gentlemen? What do you say to people that will see this movie that might have gone through this and weren't successful, or might be going through it now?
That I'm with you, and that I know what it's like. I've been there. I've been down that road. My family's been there. We struggled, we fought, we cried, but we held on and we didn't break. And I would say to them to be self-empowered, to stay strong and to not fold, and do everything in your power to save your life. And even if it's not happening as fast as you wanted to, that don't mean you give up. You just keep pushing. That's what I did.
What was most important to portray? What a cast, by the way. I mean, how do you direct Morgan Freeman? We could talk hours about that, I guess.
I directed him as God, so
True.
it was a similar role to play Mr. Johnson, who has the wisdom of a true mystic or saint or sage. It was all about being authentic and trying to tell his story in the most truthful way, because his story is powerful, his life is powerful. We wanted to put that on the screen in the simplest, again, most authentic way possible, and having him around was essential. The one scenes he couldn't be, there were two scenes I remember that Brian couldn't be around because they were too hard. One was prison, and the other one was your arrest.
My arrest.
Was the arrest. It was just too powerful. But we had a chance to shoot in a prison, and we I remember telling the prisoners, because you could see that there was a look of desperation in some of those eyes, and we said we're going to tell a story that may just do something to help. Like, we're not going to forget about you. That's what his life represents. He didn't forget. He's here to serve now.
All right, so sitting next to Brian was also director Tom Shadyac from Liar Liar fame, and he also directed
Pants on Fire.
he also directed Morgan Freeman and Bruce
They should have
Almighty.
made a sequel to Liar Liar, and it could have been Pants on Fire. Just thinking
They
out
did
loud.
make a sequel to Bruce Almighty called Evan Almighty with Steve Carell.
Didn't see it. Nothing against Steve, because we love him. We've talked to him several times, but I did not see that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tom Shadyac, who's known for comedies, really, and he stepped into the director's role. Intriguing most about the story is the dynamics of this tale, which is something that you'll experience if you see this. You need to see this movie. It's empowering. I know that there's people perhaps that are watching this episode right now that are going through this now, and you can't give up. And Brian certainly didn't give up. Talking to him, my favorite part of the interview, though, was the J.J. Watt. Yeah. So and again, I'm not revealing anything, but there's a lot of NFL scenes, and he does the jumps like J.J. Watt of the Houston Texans does, and we love J.J.
Yeah.
So,
And at the bottom, we're going to include all the contact information for the Texas Innocence Project, the New York Innocence Project, and also the California Innocence Project. So that'll be at the bottom right here.
Yeah. 6 years in prison, 5 years under a tough parole, and the guy could have given up on life. He didn't, and that actually is one of the inspiring points of the movie. Okay, so there's some more of the cast.
Yeah. So we talked to Aldous Hodge, who actually plays Brian Banks, and then Greg Kinnear, who plays his lawyer.
Yeah. Great to see you again, and
you.
great to
Likewise.
meet you. What a powerful movie. Just what an incredible story. I'm curious what drew you both to these roles. Obviously, the power of telling this thing, but what was the one thing that stuck out for you that drew you to this?
Man, first of all, the inspiration that I felt is what I wanted to give the audience because of what he went through and what it really meant. He never gave up on himself, and that was beautiful to me. And then at the same time, there's a great potential for us to be an asset in the conversation for judicial reform. So those really kind of are equivalent in terms of my wanting to really be here, because Brian, he deserves for people to understand and see him and see what he went through and show that you don't have to live in the darkness. You can choose to be the light.
Same question for you, Greg.
Yeah, I was Mine started with a sit down for a cup of coffee with Tom Shadyac, which turned into a 4-hour meeting where he was just so clear about how he felt about this story and telling this story and his passion for it. Meeting all of the individuals, Brian and Justin Brooks, who I play, was unbelievable. It was a learning experience. I didn't know what the California Innocence Project was, and to meet him and these, advocates within his, law realm that have all fought for, these people and exonerated over 30 of them, sometimes have been locked up for 20, 30 years. It was humbling to not only meet the guy, but then I got to play him. And by the way, he's on set and has a few acting notes for me, clear it periodically. So, so I had the whole deck going, man. You get that from Brian?
I would do it like this.
Did Brian give you any acting notes? A little bit.
I got a few notes.
We got some notes. We got some notes.
Got a few notes.
Well, then my question is, what surprised you both, since you got to work with the people that you portray, which is lucky, really lucky when you're telling a story like this. But what surprised you both about the people that you play? What surprised you about Brian?
Honestly, just his light. The fact that he was, he seems so happy-go-lucky, like he's funny, you know what I mean? But you can't tell that he went through what he went through if he hadn't told you prior. If you didn't know his story beforehand, you just think his brother's just happy as want to be, But he doesn't wear it. It's really the most surprising thing, the most impressive thing about him is that he does not carry this chip on his shoulder or carry the identity of the darkness that he went through.
Same for you.
Yeah, well, in a way, it's a similar answer because Justin is somebody who's battling this criminal justice reform on a day-to-day basis, and this is an incredible story, one where it works, where everything works. That's not usually the case. Everything doesn't work. It's usually no. And I don't know. I would be armed with cynicism and anger, and he's not. And I think like Brian, I mean, he carries himself with a great deal of compassion and just keeps marching up the hill. And both these guys are incredible inspirations in that way for all of us.
Yeah.
There is a football element to this movie, obviously, so I have to bring this up. I'm from Houston. We have the Texans. We have J.J. Watt. Dude, you were doing some J.J. Watt jumps. Like when you were. I mean, I've seen some interviews that you all have done. You're getting standing ovations at every premiere that you've done. Congratulations!
Awesome, man, thank you.
And I love this movie, but I saw you, like, the training must have been outrageous because you did that, and I was like, J.J. Watt.
Yeah, those box shelves were real.
CGI? I couldn't.
It wasn't nothing CG about it. Now.
Okay,
I don't think it was CG.
I was like, ooh, these knees. Yeah, man, me and Brian started training about a month and some change before we even got to set. So we were really kind of pushing each other, man. And we had a great time. That's where we solidified our brotherhood, was in the gym. But I was excited to do it because any job that gets to push me mentally, emotionally, and physically all in one, something that is truly transformative for me as an artist. It's going to push my limits and show me who I really am, like, in this space right now. So I was ready to get it. The training was tough. It was hard. The hardest thing was the eating or what I could not eat. But beside that, man, I was ready to get it. So they were like, yo, we need these box jumps. I'm like, all right, well, let's put some more boxes on there. Let's see how high we can get, Because Brian did a 6-foot box jump. And we were trying to match that. So, yeah.
It is, and I've said this before, and I've said this, I'll say it again about this film, that the message is when you think you should give up on life, don't. Brian certainly could have thrown in the towel, and there's a sports analogy, but he didn't. And as a result, I think part of showing this movie, putting this movie out in the world, is part of the redemption process that he has. So just incredible. All right, so there's more to the cast, and Sherry Shepherd plays Brian's mom in the movie, and there are some scenes that are just gut-wrenching. Specifically, and then Brian mentioned this, the arrest scene. Mom's part of that. And then Melanie Liburd, I hope I'm saying her name right. It's Liburd, Liburd. She plays a girlfriend to Brian, not the accuser, but a girl that Brian establishes a relationship with as well throughout the film. So, I asked them, what the experience was like to play such emotional roles.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you both
Nice
today.
to meet you.
Fantastic
Nice to
work.
see you.
Thank you.
I absolutely love this film.
Thank you.
It was emotional for me to watch. What was it like when you first read this script? Were you just in awe? I mean, this story is incredible.
Wow, when I first read the script, I connected to Brian Banks' mother, Leomi, in such a way. I'm a mother. I have a son who's 12 years old who could be Brian Banks, and how she fought for him. And Brian will tell you she was the bedrock of his sanity while he was going through his darkest days. So just as a mother, I said, I want to do this. And you look like a mama's boy.
I am a huge mama's boy. I should point out, mom's watching
know
this from the
that?
corner. Could you figure that out?
You know.
I was like, yeah, mom, yeah.
You know, but the scenes with the mother and her son.
Yes.
Yeah.
Special.
Mom had her own parking spot at the school. If I ever got in a little bit of trouble, my mouth got me in trouble.
That's
I
right.
wasn't one of these. I was just a smarty
Yes.
pants. But mom had her own parking spot. She said, "You're not going to talk to my children that way." But yes, I mean,
So
you know
the ferociousness
that's
of a mother over her cub. And to know that her son was pulled away from her at 16. For 2 weeks, they wouldn't tell her where they were holding her son. And so that is what drew me to this
Can't
movie.
even imagine. And just reading the script, like Sherry was saying, it was such a powerful script, and then I found out that it was a true story and was like, whoa, who is this guy? This is an incredible story. So yeah, just a story of hope and just how not letting your past define your future.
Yes.
How involved was Brian in the filming process? What advice did he give you all?
Oh my
as far as-
God.
He was there every day.
He was? Oh, I
Yes.
love hearing that.
Single day.
I love
Amazing.
hearing that.
You know, the thing about Brian is he would meet with you and talk about, because this is a true story, what he was going through. In my case, it was about how much he loved his mother, and he would tell me how he would look to his mother for everything. So when you see the movie, you'll see Aldous is always looking at me. When he was arrested, he was screaming, Ma. When he was taken, when we thought he was going to go free, he looked at me, he went, Ma. And that was what Brian imparted to both of us, how important his mother was to him.
I mean, I was going to say, those scenes in the courtroom, we were all in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I mean,
So emotional.
we were just in our characters anyway, but you didn't need to do anything really. You just had to watch and just be devastated. Everyone was just there. It was just incredible.
What do you hope the conversation is? I was writing this question, and I was gonna talk to Brian, but I as I'm watching your characters, I'm thinking, I think I'm gonna ask this room this question. What do you hope the conversation is after people see this movie?
I think it is a parent's worst nightmare to ever get a call that their child has been incarcerated and they can't do anything to help you. And I would hope that we as parents would get together and use our voices to change the judicial system, to do the work and figure out who are we electing to be a judge and a DA, because God forbid your child is in front of one of these people. I would hope that you would do jury duty, because God forbid again, you're in front of jurors. You sure want to see people who look like you.
You both are giving me chills as we're talking today. But that's important to talk about this stuff. It really
Absolutely,
is.
and just to make more movies like this one and spread awareness so there can be change. There will be.
There has to
Eventually.
be. Absolutely, there has to be. We'll close with this. As actresses, when you get to play a role like this, being in a powerful movie like this, how rewarding is that?
So rewarding. That's why we do it. I mean, it's an honor actually to be asked to be in this movie and work with actresses like Sherry, who's just incredible at everything, and our fearless director Tom
Yes.
Shadyac. Brilliant.
It literally is everything to be able to tell someone's story and to be able to honor them. So to be able to, pay homage to Leomi, who's a quiet hero, doesn't think she did anything special except love her son, but that was everything. So to be able to play this woman and give honor to her, it's a joy.
You know what? This is fun. Actually, is this the first time we've done the video one?
Yeah.
But is this the first film we've had to chat about?
Yeah.
Since we launched this?
It is.
The Backstage Experience, by the way, brought to you by Summit Dental Center in Houston. SummitDentalCenter.com if you want to make an appointment. They're awesome, and I do encourage you to go back and look at the
Episode 1 of the podcast.
So you're labeling them like Star Wars. Then I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Tell me what struck you most about this film.
I would say, and I know this term's overused, but the relatability and like the issue actually being called out, because I know this happens to more people than it definitely should. I don't know the actual statistics, but it wouldn't surprise me if the number of people in prison, at least 10%, it's got to be in the double digits that shouldn't be there, just because they, like I said before, they can't afford a lawyer, they can't afford a proper lawyer, and the system really does take advantage of them.
Yeah, we call it the best system in the world. It's fair to say I think that we still do have the best justice system in the world. Justice isn't perfect. That's why I'm happy that there are groups like the Innocence Project that actually help people that need it. It's
and it does prove that the checks and balance system is there in a way, because he was able to get the charges dropped, but it taken him 6 years and then the 5 years of parole. Like the amount of time that it took, I think, is a bit
It moves
absurd.
very slow, and you do experience that. You see how slow it moves. The movie itself doesn't move slow because the movie's
is amazing.
Yeah, it's from start to finish. It really is an incredible thing to watch as this plays out. Because there's a couple of points where I even felt watching it, I was like, you know what, I would give up at this point, but you can't. And he knew he didn't commit the crime. And he fought.
And I think a big thing that played into it as well, it's like he had a support group around him. He had his mother there that was backing him the whole way. He even, I'm not going to ruin it, but he had people even in the prison system that were.
Well, you could say that because there was a guy, a spiritual guidance type kind of guy who is played by Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
And Morgan's in the trailer. So you can give that away. But
so I think with those two people, with
those scenes are powerful.
Yeah,
by the way.
with having somebody inside with him that is motivating him, and then also obviously his family being there to back him up as well. I think that really played into it. For those that don't have that type of support group, I don't know how you.
If I had more time, I was going to ask him about the actor, the gentleman playing Brian in this movie. I was going to ask him, what it's like to share a scene with Morgan Freeman, because the only thing that I've interviewed Morgan a couple of times, but I have also, and we shared an elevator with him once. We can tell that story.
Yeah, that's a funny story. So we just saw, what was it, Eye in the Sky or
something? Yeah,
some type of movie like that.
He was in the theater with us.
Yeah, he was in the theater. He was sitting in the very back, and we didn't realize it. So we're at the hotel. We're getting on the elevator, and I see this guy dressed as. The analogy I'd give is, remember the Goofy movie when he was wearing like the fisherman outfit and all that? So he was just completely decked like in fisherman type gear. And I was like looking at the guy, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then it dawned on me who it was.
Morgan Freeman.
And so we get on the elevator, and then he's standing right in front of Dave, and Dave doesn't know who it is yet. And then I look over at Dave and like,
which people watching us are going, how do you not know it's Morgan Freeman?
No.
There were like 8 people in the elevator.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, and like the way he was dressed, like it was very unassuming. And then I look over at Dave like this, and then like all of a sudden his eyes lift up. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, here's my Morgan Freeman story.
And then we ran into him like the next day as well. Like we've met him in the elevator of this hotel like 5 times.
Apparently he hangs out at this hotel.
I think he lives there. Actually.
Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Chambers in the house. We're telling Morgan Freeman stories. Craig's off camera. Craig, just come and wave.
Yeah.
Because then people think I'm seeing.
Craig works in the creative services department here at Fox.
How you doing?
Craig, are you going to go see Brian Banks' movie?
This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay, well, see, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Perfect. Everybody's been on cue today. I love that. By the way, what is that gum that you're eating? Because it smells great.
Ice cubes.
Dude.
Nice.
Yeah. I need to get some. And the cool thing about eating that ice cube gum is that when you chew into it, it goes, yay, yay. Sorry. Free joke. He's laughing. My Morgan Freeman story. I sat across from Morgan for a movie. I don't remember what it was for, but I looked at him, and we get 5 minutes. And as we do these episodes, we're gonna give you behind the scenes. We need to shoot some of these like on location when we're doing this. Yeah. So I want to give you like insight of what we do. You see the interviews and the finished product and things like that. A lot goes into the work of putting those together. And I think one episode of this Backstage Experience could be just that. Anyway, so we're sitting there with Morgan. We get 5 minutes with the actors, and there's always somebody in the corner that goes like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then they wrap you. And they're sitting, you have to look with your peripheral. And while you're talking to the actor, listening to what they're saying, knowing where the questions are going, you have this to monitor, because in the room there's always a audio person, a room director. It's a lot. Anyway, so I looked at Morgan. I had about a minute left with him, And I said, hey, how many times do people ask you to say stuff, either voicemail or whatever? He goes, all the time. And I would imagine, he is God, the voice of God. So I said, hey, can you say Dave Morales? And he said, Dave Morales, just like that. And I looked at him, I said, no, man. I go, say it like Morgan Freeman. And he goes, well, who do you think just said it? So, yeah, that was my Morgan Freeman story. Because it was Morgan Freeman, but what I meant was
say it in the Morgan Freeman
say
voice.
Say it like Morgan Freeman says it.
And the Morgan
Don't
Freeman
be just
voice.
like Dave Morales and not say it like Dave Morales or whatever. Anyway, moving on. Brian Banks, you need to see this because it is empowering. It is uplifting. I can't say that enough. The acting in it is just incredible. A lot of emotion was put into this. They wanted to make the movie for quite some time, and it finally got done, and I think they did a good job with it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bleecker Street, who provided travel and gave us the opportunity to talk with the cast of Brian Banks.